Catch Me If You Can, Hollywood versus reality.
We'll be traveling at 6,000 miles per hour at an altitude of 300 feet.
Coming up. Hey 747 crew, welcome back. If you don't know me, my name's Kelsey. I'm a 747 pilot. My channel 74 Gear is all about aviation. Today I'm here in Charleston, South Carolina, and you know the drill. In Charleston, our hotel looks over a pool, so I can't really show you the video outside my hotel room, but that's where I'm at. An interesting fact about Charleston, South Carolina, Frank Abagnale, who this Catch Me If You Can movie is based on his life, he currently lives here in Charleston. I have not run across him, but he currently lives here. Most of you already know that this movie is based off of a true story. It's starring Tom Hanks and Leonardo DiCaprio, and of course both of them do an amazing job in this film. If you haven't already seen the movie, I'll put a link to it down below in the description. This film takes place during the golden age of aviation, the 60s and the 70s, and a lot consider that to be one of the best times to be part of a flight crew and cabin crew. So this movie needs no introduction. Let's get into it.
You look too young to be a pilot.
I'm a co-pilot.
Why so nervous?
How would you feel if you lost your uniform first week on the job?
Relax. Pan Am's got lots of uniforms. It's going to be $164.
Great. I'll write you a check.
Sorry, no checks, no cash. You'll have to fill in your employee ID number, and then I'll bill Pan Am. I'll take it out in your next paycheck.
Even better.
The first thing that caught my eye was that Leonardo only has 2 stripes on his jacket. Now, in some countries, they have something called a second officer, which means that they are a cruise relief, which means on a very long flight, all they'll do is work the radios and hit some buttons and cruise. They don't do anything for the takeoff and the landing. However, Leonardo refers to himself as a co-pilot, which is not a term that we currently use now, but it usually indicates that he is a first officer. So that was just a little snafu I noticed, but he only has 2 instead of 3. The other people that you'll see that have 2 now, or sometimes flight attendants will have 2. In some airlines, I've seen flight attendants where they have a jacket and they have 2 stripes. But pilots now don't have 2 stripes unless they're a second officer, which only is in some countries. The second part, when he is talking with him about taking the money out of his paycheck, that's actually true, and that's how it works today. In most cases, what you have is a budget that you're allowed to spend on uniform parts. It could be $200, $300, $400. It really depends on your airline, and you can spend that on whatever you want. It could be shirts or pants or a jacket or whatever you want. But that is actually true. That's how it works. They take it out of your paycheck. So how they were talking about it then, about it coming out of your paycheck, is still how it works today. Now, something that is accurate for this time period, but is not how it works today, is you don't have somebody that's tailoring your uniform. In most cases, you're ordering a uniform and you'll have to go get it tailored yourself. Now, Pan Am was kind of like Emirates is today, which they're very conscious about image quality. So it's possible that at this time frame that you would go and have a tailor actually tailor your suit. Now when you get your pants, you'll have to go to your own tailor and tailor them yourself. All right, let's get back to the film.
Hello.
Hi. Are you deadheading?
What?
Are you my deadhead to Miami?
Yes. Yeah, I'm the deadhead. Here you go.
You're a little late, but the jump seat is open.
You know, it's been a while since I've done this. Which one's the jump seat again?
Have a nice flight.
Well, he has 3 stripes now, so maybe they put the 3rd stripe on after he left the tailor. I don't know. Another thing that's really cool is that where this is taking place looks like JFK. It's that old TWA hotel that they've been renovating, and I think it's open now. It is really cool. I haven't had a chance to check it out, but I've heard from a few people it's really cool. The biggest Hollywood thing about this scene is actually how they're confusing 2 words that are often messed up: deadheading and jump seating. So she asks him, "Are you my deadheader?"
Are you my deadhead to Miami?
Now, what the term deadhead means is when your company is moving you from one location to another location because they need you to get there, that is a deadhead. In this case, it seems like Frank is going to Miami because he wants to go there. That's called jump seating. So they confuse these 2 words because if he was a deadheader, he would be walking up, he'd have a positive space seat, and he would go fly it like any other passenger. A lot of times you'll see on my Instagram, I talk about, oh, I'm on a deadhead, and it's abbreviated DH. And you'll see that sometimes I put that on my Instagram, and people say, well, what's a deadhead? That's what a deadhead is. It's usually when the company needs me to get to a different city, they'll put me on an aircraft as a passenger, and they'll fly me there. The term jump seat is what's used when I want to go somewhere on my own, on my free time. So in a case where I finish work and I'm ready to go somewhere and visit friends, I will jump seat. And that means where I fly for free, if there's a spot available, I can catch a flight. So now when you see those posts on my Instagram, say I'm on a deadhead going to Japan, that's what I'm talking about. Now when you deadhead, you don't ride on the flight deck. You ride as a passenger in the back, like I said earlier. So the fact that he's going to actually go on his free time means if there's not a seat available in the back, he'll ride up on the flight deck. That's called the jump seat. That seat that you sit in is called the jump seat, and the act of doing this, traveling for free on your own, is called jump seating. Another thing that people have asked me about is when you're deadheading, can you ride on the jump seat? And no, you can't. The only scenario that you're allowed to ride on the flight deck is when there are no extra seats available in the back. And for the most part, no airline pilot is going to ask to sit in that seat because it's very uncomfortable. The only scenario might be if it's a friend of yours that's flying or some guys that you really want to talk to, you might sit up there, but the seats are a lot less comfortable than even the passenger seats in the back, and I know that's hard to believe. For some of you that have ridden coach on a very long flight, you think this is the worst possible seat. Trust me, that seat, the jump seat up there on the flight deck, is worse. It's very small, there's no support. A lot of times your legs have no room to stretch out at all, and you also need permission to go to the bathroom, so it's definitely worse. That being said, I know a lot of aviation enthusiasts would pay a lot of money to sit up there, so it all depends on what you think. Okay, let's get back to Catch Me If You Can.
Are you my deadhead?
Frank, Captain Oliver, John Larkin, the co-pilot, Fred Tully, flight engineer.
Frank Taylor, Pan Am. Thanks for giving me a lift, boys.
Go ahead and take a seat, Frank. We're about to push. What kind of equipment you on? DC-8?
707.
You turning around on the red-eye?
I'm jumping puddles for the next few months, trying to earn my keep running leapfrogs for the weak and weary.
No shame in that. We all did it.
Something that's very Hollywood in this scene is that both the pilots are already wearing their shoulder harnesses. I've talked about it many times before, but while you're on the ground, pilots never wear those. They're not very comfortable, it's hard to move and get things, so you never wear your shoulder harnesses, and honestly, after takeoff, like you saw in the Sully movie that did the Hollywood versus reality on, shortly after takeoff, most pilots take their shoulder harnesses off, because at that point, you don't really need them. Next, you see Leonardo actually looking around for where the jump seat is. I know it seems crazy, but on every plane it's different, and sometimes you have to hit a button to release it. So it's kind of an interesting thing because I've been there trying to get a jump seat out and I can see everybody on the plane looking at me, and it feels awkward, like, yeah, I fly a $200 million plane, but I can't figure out how to work this seat. And honestly, it happens a lot more than you might think. What happens is when you get up there, the pilots will ask something like, are you familiar? And that's basically asking how familiar are you with the flight deck of this aircraft as far as for the emergency exits, how the jump seat works, and all of those things. If you're not familiar, then you just say, no, I've never been on this flight deck before, or I haven't been here for a while. And they'll give you a quick briefing of all the things that you need to know. And one of them is how to get the seat out, how to stow the seat in the case that you need to evacuate. It's really important that if you've never been up there before, that you tell them you've never been up there before, because it gets very embarrassing if you say that you've been there before and you know how it all works and then you can't figure it out. I mean, I've never done it, but a friend told me about it. Okay, let's get back to the movie.
Have a seat.
Thank you.
Would you like a drink after takeoff?
Milk?
80 knots. Check. V1, rotate. V2, positive rate.
Gear up.
Dear Dad, today was graduation. I am now a co-pilot earning $1,400 a month plus benefits. And the best part is, they tell me my family can fly for free.
So the callouts that you hear the pilots making are actually pretty accurate. Those are still calls or variations of calls that we still use to this day. So Hollywood obviously did some research on that to get that right. Something that I was laughing about, however, was that he was talking about how he's making $1,400 a month. Now in the 60s and the 70s, that was probably a lot of money. What I'm laughing about is in the 90s and 2000s, pilots were still making, in some cases, only that amount of money. And instead of being excited, writing home saying, I'm making this much money, pilots were writing home saying, I'm only making this much money. Please send me some food.
It's funny because it's true.
Now, something that's in here that I've never seen before, and maybe some of the aviation enthusiasts know, there's two little mirror-looking things that are sitting up on the upper part of the dash. Now, I've never seen those before, but maybe some of the aviation enthusiasts can tell me down below in the comment section what those are, because I have no idea. And you also saw what I was talking about in that earlier scene about the seat being hidden inside that little closet. It would be a little bit hard for you to find that if you didn't know where it was. And once you're up there on the flight deck of another aircraft, of another airline, it's kind of like being a guest in someone's home. You're not just going to start rifling through all their stuff. So usually you'll kind of just wait and let them show you where it is, like what happened there. But so that is actually pretty accurate to how it would happen, except it wouldn't be the flight attendants that would usually come up and do it for you. One of the other pilots would tell you how to get it out. Okay, let's get back to Catch Me If You Can.
Thank you all very much for coming. At the end of the day, I'll be choosing 8 young ladies to be a part of Pan Am's future stewardess flight crew program. Now, these 8 young ladies will accompany me on a 2-month public relations tour through Europe. They will discover firsthand what it takes to be a Pan American stewardess.
What qualifies me to be a future stewardess?
Well, I think that I'm really friendly and I can really help out and make people feel welcome on the plane. And
We'll be traveling at 6,000 miles per hour at an altitude of 300 feet.
See that blonde out front?
Should have been a pilot.
Exactly.
For those of you that are planning to be flight attendants in the future, and obviously in this film they're calling them stewardesses because that was what they were called back in the day, but they still do those large group interviews like what they're showing there. And while I've never participated in a flight attendant interview process, I did find it funny that that flight attendant was making an announcement.
We'll be traveling at 6,000 miles per hour at an altitude of 300 feet.
Now, even if she were to reverse the numbers that she said, 300 and 6,000, and they were to be doing 300 knots at 6,000 feet, that would still be pretty impressive. Not as impressive as 6,000 knots at 300 feet, but you get the point. As the part as far as for walking through the terminal and having people stare at you, that's not as common now as it used to be. It does happen a lot more, I find, when I'm overseas. Even domestically inside the US, though, I do see it from time to time. Sometimes as I'm walking with a group of flight attendants, you'll see people that are looking over and smiling. You kind of see that look in their eye like, man, that's something I'd really like to have done. And usually it's from older people that remember that golden era of aviation. It's definitely not today as glamorous as it was during this time, the 60s and the 70s, when Pan Am was doing everything. But at the end of the day, it beats most any other job. I do find, though, for sure, in a lot of countries, sometimes in Asia or even South America, that the way they treat you as a crew member is significantly better when they know that you're crew. There is still that idea of how cool and how amazing it is to be part of a flight crew. And it's really nice to be treated that way because it gives me a little taste of what it used to be like for these pilots and these flight attendants back in the 60s and the 70s. It's my understanding that Frank, the guy who Leonardo DiCaprio is portraying in this movie, actually did that group interview and actually took a group of 8 over to Europe. And honestly, that is so baller.
That is so baller.
Good for you, Frank. Good for you. Something else that caught my eye, which isn't really a Hollywood thing, but Leonardo now has 4 stripes on his jacket. That signifies that he is now a captain. And back in this era, usually you weren't getting very, very young captains at the airlines, not like you're seeing now because of such a heavy pilot shortage. At this time, you wouldn't get somebody usually that young as a captain at a big airline like that. Now this next scene is towards the end of the movie after they've caught Leonardo for doing all the things that he shouldn't have been doing, and he's on his way back to the US to face trial.
Carl. Carl. You have to remember to let me call my father when we land. I want to talk to him before he sees me on television or something like that. Carl, look. That's LaGuardia right there. Runway 44.
Okay, I had to pause it here real quick. There is no such thing as runway 44. How it works is the runways have numbers based on the compass heading of that runway. For example, if your plane was landing to the north, it would have runway 36, meaning it's landing directly to the north, or directly to the south, runway 18, or to the east or to the west, and it's going to have a numbers of anything like that. So you could have runway 7 or runway 27, but you can't have runway 44. So that's just something, I don't know, you could use as a party trick if people are talking about the different runways, but it's all based on the compass heading of that specific runway. And over time, as the compass changes, sometimes it'll actually change the number of that runway. Another thing that is just funny is that I find it so interesting that in real life, this individual was able to portray being an airline pilot and fly and trick crews, flight attendants, and pilots that he was actually a pilot. And I find that pretty funny because when I started this channel, if you're newer, when I started this channel, I had a lot of messages saying, that guy's not a real pilot, he's a liar, he's a fake. And I find it just amazing that in real life, this guy was able to go out there and convince that many people to let him fly for free and travel all around the world. I realize it was a different era and people were more honest during that time period, but I just find it so amazing. Okay, last scene of Catch Me If You Can.
You'll have to take your seat, sir. I've told you twice. We're landing.
Sorry, thank you.
All of you.
Frank, come on now. Frank?
We're landing in 6 minutes. All of you need to be in your seats.
Frank, open the door.
Fastened.
Frank! 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 God almighty.
There is a way to actually unlock those doors from the outside without busting it in and possibly squishing the person that's in there. I'm not going to tell you how to do it because I don't want to be responsible for someone getting their bathroom break interrupted, but there is a way to have that done. The scene with him climbing down the toilet is pretty Hollywood though. I don't know the schematics of this aircraft and how it works, but for example on the 747, that does not work. This is what the inside of the wheel well looks like on a Boeing 747. I don't have the courage or the drive to rip off the toilet seat because I am not interested to see what's down there and I think it would be totally disgusting. However, on a 747, you'll just have to take my word for it. There is no way to climb through and down into the wheel well. They are not connected. I've done so many aviation movies starring Tom Hanks. I hope he enjoys these if he ever watches them. If you haven't seen the Hollywood versus reality that I did on the film Castaway starring Tom Hanks when his plane crashes into the ocean, I'll put a link to it right here. I look forward to hearing from you. Until then, keep the blue side up.